All right, just for everyone's awareness, all our sessions now are being recorded for future posting.
Yeah.
I call that blogs, or what's the other one?
Is this so that everyone has
Yeah,
that?
it's for communication so that everybody has
That's all
access.
YouTube stuff. But good morning. This is your PDCMS counseling team. I'm Mr. Walton, accompanied by Ms. Poseidon and Mr. Ruiz. Ms. Vasquez may be joining us, and Dr. Sheffa may be popping in. This is a topic that we briefed recently to all the students in their math classes,
Eighth grade.
eighth grade math classes that we're sharing, and it's a lot more data and timelines, but it's the information as the look from here to the end of the school year to think about all the things that we need to do for eighth graders and that they need to be thinking about and families need to think about the high school transition. So there's going to be some things that we've already done that we're doing now and what we'll see in the future.
Yeah, again, the intention of the presentation we told our kids is for them to start kind of thinking about some questions, getting curious. You're gonna see right now, we have a timeline like Mr. Walton was sharing of dates where they're gonna be interacting with the high school counselors directly about choosing classes. And there's also gonna be a moment where they're gonna be able to do a one-on-one check-in as to the classes they've selected and if it matches their goals and all that stuff. So we want them to start getting curious and be inspired to ask questions that are hopefully lined up with their interests, so that they're not just shocked with a whole bunch of information right when they're supposed to start doing their enrollment process. So
And
that's
Ms. Vasquez worked really hard communicating with them. She's like the liaison that sets all the timelines and all that stuff up, and it can get, because the Palm Desert High School likes to have their timelines way in advance. So a lot of these dates have been set for in stone and they don't move and very early too, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so we started earlier in December with presentations in the math class, like I briefed just a minute ago. This next bullet that's highlighted is really important. Transfer requests for the 24-25 school year are being accepted and starting December 4th through February 28th, and that's at Desert Sands district level. Right. And I learned my first year here. I'll share the short experience where a family called me up. This is my first year as a counselor. And they said, Mr. Walton, you're going to register our student for Palm Desert High School, right? Or for high school. And I was like, my eyes got wide and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know that was I was missing something in my job duties, right? Like, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. So I ran around the office asking all my colleagues, and like I say, how do I sign up the student that's transitioning from eighth grade to high school? And they go, we can't. And that's because students at this campus don't have we don't have a zoned zip code, right? We have students from all locations throughout the valley and different cities, all the way up to Beaumont, Yucca Valley, probably, and there's Banning and they can thermal, they can come from anywhere. And so then I learned as a newer counselor, it's your address, right? By law stipulates where that student goes to school. So if you have an Indio address, even though you attend this middle school, Indio High School is your directed, defaulted high school, right? And unless you purposely go ask for one of those transfers, then that's how it changes, right? So the family and the student are required to go to the district, and there's the district website has that link where you fill that out during that time frame. I can tell you from previous years, they stop that process on the date that they publish, right? They close it. And so we'll get some families that call up in March and April and say, how do I transfer? Well, the window is closed. You have to wait till August, I think it is, the following school year when they open it up. And there's a chance you could still get that transfer before the school day starts or the school year starts. But it's a lot more difficult because they're already placing all the transfer students that they accepted into the schools that they may go in. right? So when they open in August, it's not necessarily for, they're not seeking like a lot of new requests for that month later or the same day. But they're opening it, again, for those last few spots that may still be open.
And
So you-
there is a difference between the inner district, and out of district. So if you're in Palm Springs, you're in Palm Springs Unified School District, or if you're in Coachella, you're in that school district. So you have to apply for the, you're out of the district and you're trying to get into this district, where it's a little bit easier if you're already in this district and you're just trying to move to a different school inside the district. So, yeah, it is really important.
So it's good to make sure you understand, where you are and what your primary school would be, and then decide if that's the school you want to attend or if you want to make a transfer. So-
And that is on the Desert Sands Unified School District website. You can go in there and type in your address, and it will tell you exactly which ones are your homeschool, elementary, middle, and high school.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
February, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm skipping ahead. In February, I think it might even have changed to, is it the end of, is it 31 January? Or is
It might be January 31st. We still haven't got that date set. But it will be either January 31st or February 1st that students will be taking the Spanish placement assessment. That will be here at school. It will be, usually we set it up in the multi-purpose room. It's during their PE classes. So when we went into the classrooms on December 4th, we did let students know, please, please, please attend school that day. Try not to be sick. I know that sometimes it's hard not to, but please, that is a really important date, January 31st or February 1st, because we will be doing the Spanish placement assessment test. And really, it's a test just to assess them where they're at as far as their Spanish skills. Are they native speakers, or can they read and write in Spanish? That's going to place them in a different Spanish class at the high school. So it's really important that they're here on that day. Every
Yeah.
student takes it. And we let the students know on December 4th, when we were in the classrooms, we let the students know this is not something like that you can really study for. It's really just to see where your background experience is. So if, again, we're trying to find those students who maybe can read and write, native speakers, some of those students may be placed in Spanish honors. So if they don't know any of the questions, then they don't know any of the questions, then they would go into Spanish.
And we do have like about 60%, Spanish.
Are there other
Spanish
languages
speakers at
offered
the
at the
school,
high
so.
So I can,
However, there are not many classes in the past, and again, this may change next year. But in the past, we have been notified that there are not many classes offered because there are not a lot of students who are interested in taking. So they have to fill up the classes that they have. So yes, every student will take that Spanish placement assessment here at PDCMS, and it's a one-time thing. The Spanish teacher is over here one day from the high school, and she gives that placement assessment to all of our students. So it's really important that they're here.
It's not very stressful for, because
No,
a lot
it's
of them will say, but I don't speak any Spanish. Okay, but still take it, see what you know, whatever. Then you're probably gonna be in the beginner class or whatever. It's not that big of a
It's not
deal,
big.
but they do wanna see, what levels they are, so that then when they do get into that class, they can kind of look that score up and say, okay, this student, had a little bit of Spanish, not much, but a little bit, and they know where to
it's
start.
best
with
for
that.
the Palm Desert team to have all that data. 'Cause I get students that asked previous years, well, I'm transferring, I'm not going to that high school. That's okay, just do it, because we don't know what happens in the future. Some
Right.
families were gonna move and then they didn't, so they still went to that school.
Yeah.
And they just do a quick query at the beginning. There's the assistant director of the department over there. They ask the students that feel they should be in a maybe more elevated. There's a written portion where it's all in Spanish in paragraph form. And so if they do that, then they have that information once they start doing schedules.
They have
And
Spanish
your question
medium.
earlier, the high school there only offers Spanish and French. Those are the only two options, right? They go, well, I'm gonna take French. Well, you might not get into it, so they want to know where to place you in Spanish if you need it. Encourage your student. They don't need to be looking at their neighbor. It's 40 questions, multiple choice in a Google form. It's completely in Spanish. So if they just guess, then they just guess if they don't know. And so it's just to determine where they should start so that they have the best opportunity for success.
And the students are all aware that they will be receiving this assessment. Like I said, on December 4th, we were in all of the math classes. And we gave a presentation with high school information. Pretty much this presentation was given to them. So they are aware of all these dates. They will receive. And I do want to mention that you don't need to like write these dates down. I will be sending out after this presentation. I do have a checkoff list that I make every year for students and parents so that you can check off like what was done. So all of these dates will be in there, February 15th, the 26th. They're all really important dates. So I will be doing a mass email after this presentation today. And then on February 15th, the high school info review we do in the classrooms, we'll be doing that in the science classes, and we'll be doing a CCGI lesson with the students to plan some of their courses. It's really like a 4-year plan. They will be doing this at the high school as well, but again, we try to prepare them so that when they do sit with their counselors at the high school, that they have a little bit of a know as to what their high school counselor is speaking of. So we all know that everything takes practice. If you see information once, not always are you going to be able to process that information. So we really try to give them the chance to get the information before they go to the high school. So we will be doing a 4-year plan with them in our CCGI platform. That's College and Career Guidance Initiative. And our students are very well versed in that CCGI platform because we do start them off in 6th grade doing lessons. So we do in 6th grade, we do 3 lessons, 7th grade, and then 8th grade. And in 8th grade, one of the lessons is the high school planning.
It's like a hub. So once they check, like, so for example, tomorrow we're going into the 6th grade, they're gonna sign in, they're gonna make an account. So once they have that account, it follows them all the way to 12th grade. And so their teacher, maybe their language arts teacher, their English teacher might load up all those essays that are gonna go to the UC schools or whatever. They all get loaded up in there and all the information is in one place, one spot. So we're just kind of doing little like activities and stuff like that with them so that they can kind of look at colleges, what's the GPA, what's acceptance rate, what if they want to do when they get older, what their interests are, that kind of stuff.
February 26th, that's when the Palm Desert High School counselors will visit our students in their math classes to talk about their course selection. So they're going to give them a preview of what the course selection is, talk a little bit about the science classes, the way they format the English classes and math classes. And that will be all digital. The course selection form will be given to our students digitally. And then the students will have to join the Google Classroom that they give to them with the code, and then they will be able to fill out their course form. We really encourage the students, obviously, we talk to them December 4th and on February 15th, and we say, please go home and talk to your parents about these courses and what you learned today with the Palm Desert High School counselors so that you can sit and have conversations about what courses you would like to take. They will fill out that form, and then on February 27th, they will go to Palm Desert High School for the rally. So that's a really fun day. And like Mr. Walton said, some students will say, well, Ms. Vasquez, Mr. Ruiz, Ms. Poseidon, we are not going to go to Palm Desert High School. That's okay. Like Mr. Walton said, sometimes things change and they end up going to Palm Desert High School, but it's just nice to have the experience as well and get on the high school campus and have a fun day. So it's a really great day. So
Yeah,
they walk
regardless,
over.
they're still gonna have an experience similar to this at any high school they go to, even if it's a private high school, they still have rallies and things like that, just like this school.
Right. And so we walk over as a team. So you will be receiving a permission slip So we walk over as a team and the high school does a really nice job about, getting things together. They have like the cheerleaders and the ASB and all of the leadership.
They showcase their
students,
clubs
and they
and things
showcase
like
their
that.
clubs. Pair them off or they group them up and then they go and they walk the campus and they show them where all the science classes are, the English and so forth. And so it's a really, really nice opportunity for them to just, get an experience on that campus. That night, that will be your night. So as parents, you guys will get to go over, you all will get to go over to Palm Desert High School and have the future freshman night for parents. Some of the students want to go with parents, but they're not required. So if your students have extracurricular activities or so forth that night, they're not required to go at night because they would have already went in the day. So it's really just geared for parents. And that usually is at 6 p.m. So I will make sure that that's the case and I will put that in there. On March 7th, the PDH counselors come back and they visit our students again in the humanities classes. And this is their chance to meet with their students individually. Last year, if I can remember correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, actually, the counselors actually met with their students, right?
Mhm.
They're
their
actually
kids.
with students,
We
so.
do a one-on-one, it's just quick
one-on-one.
session, but
It's super quick. It's like a 3-minute. It's basically for them, they'll already have a spreadsheet with all the classes that student chose. And then they'll be able to, talk with them about that and discuss those choices. So it's really important that the students have already filled out that form.
yeah, that's right.
So that they can have a good discussion. We always let the students know that if you have any questions, write it down
Yeah.
on a sticky note.
Cause they'll ask
Because
us,
that's their chance.
and we don't know those
Right.
answers because we're not at that site. So this is the time to ask those questions about that class or about what they're supposed to take, because they'll come back and ask us and we're like, we don't know, you have to ask the counselor, your counselor.
Yeah, there are some things we know, but there are some things that obviously we
Yeah.
can't keep up with everything at the high school. But so we'll defer and say, email your counselor at the high school, because that's gonna be the best option for you and you're gonna get the best answer. So it's really important for them to have the questions already ready so that they can be able to ask those questions in person. Again, it's only like a 3-minute because they do have to see all our students that day. So it's really fast, but it's really nice that they get to sit one-on-one with their counselors that day.
So from that February 26th date, when the counselors come here and do the presentation as a group to those students, and they start thinking about there's course selection, please, connect with your student between the 26th and March 7th, when those counselors come back, right? So that those conversations took place and they have a really good idea of what they're asking for. There is a date beyond that in May where they'll publish, the high school will publish, this is the cutoff for any change request. But again, you don't want March to be the first time that you're having that conversation, right? Because then the odds that that student gets that schedule might decrease, right? And there's not much flexibility at the high school scheduling aspect. Once after that May deadline, and they start making schedules, they're not gonna be taking emails or calls about changing classes.
And yeah, the high school pretty much does their scheduling at the end of this school year for next year. So it's really important that they have all the data and all the information are able to schedule the students. So we let the students know it's your part, do your part and make sure that you get in your request as soon as possible. As far as applications for athletics and audition, there's so many things at the high school that go on. The high school is a whole another playground. If you pass by the high school any other day, you'll see that there's usually cars there every night till 6, sometimes 7 o'clock at night, because they always have something going on. There's some sport event or something going on. So it's really hard for us, again, to keep up with all of those things. So it's really important for the students to mark their tab for PDHS, if they're going to go to PDHS, or if they're going to go to La Quinta, or if they're going to go to Shadow. They bookmark that tab for their website And they follow the website and they check to see when are those important dates coming up. When is the audition for volleyball? If that's something that they're interested in. When is the audition for dance? When is the
Physical,
audition
all
for
that.
cheerleading, all of those things, because there's so many things going on. So usually most of the high schools, they'll have like an athletic tab. You click on the athletic tab and they'll have all that information there. So we do really let the students know and encourage the students to bookmark their future high school, just as they would bookmark their future college or so forth, because it does have a lot of information.
And I think the private schools even have the same setup too. So if that's where they're going, or they're going to another high school, they can go to that website and look at that same information up.
This is just going back to what I mentioned earlier. We let the students know to review their course selections with their parents. They can't change any courses in the fall unless there is an administration approval. This is directly from PDHS. They run on a semester calendar, so if a student, say, doesn't fill out their course selection and they don't receive a class that maybe they would have liked to have taken, they're not going to be able to change until the semester, and they would have to speak to their counselor, and that's at the end of December. So it's a little different at the high school. They run on a semester system, but also they receive credits. So they just can't say, well, I don't want to be in Spanish anymore. I want to move to French. There's no way for the counselor for the student to receive like 2.5 credits for French and 2.5 credits for Spanish. You either get 5 credits for Spanish or 5 credits for French. So it's really important that they choose their course selection wisely, because their schedules will not be changed. So the only time that the counselors at the high school will change schedules, if they received a wrong course, let's say they chose something and they were supposed to be in a certain class, they were supposed to be in Spanish honors or what maybe, then they would consider changing that course.
That
Or
happens.
if obviously there's a hole in their schedule, they're missing a class. And
Or the system gave them all academic and
Right.
somehow they didn't
Yeah,
get PE.
there's
So they're gonna change that schedule and because they're required to have a PE, right? So those every now and then something like that might occur.
Yeah, we understand that we serve a bigger area than just Palm Desert, so we understand that a lot of families come to Palm Desert Charter Middle School just for the middle school experience, but are intending to go back to maybe their home schools by boundaries. We have always tried to reach out to our district schools as well, just to make sure that we can provide the information with you. Unfortunately, they don't have set dates for a lot of these things yet. Whenever they do share them with us, we'll share them with you. And that's just, again, the same thing, same reason. We understand that maybe we have a different school in mind for a different reason. Maybe it's closer to home, maybe it's because of athletics, maybe there's a CTE program, career technical education program that's available and the kid is interested in joining. So we want to provide that information as much as possible. This is a little flyer from La Quinta's showcase last year. That was February 16th. So they just said we don't have a set date, but kind of close target to a similar timeline. Shadow Hills usually has theirs in March. And we don't have anything from Indio, but Xavier and the private schools. Just want to mention a lot of these schools do have an application process and they require some documentations and all that stuff. Student View is such a great portal that I think sometimes there's just a lot of these little hidden gems in there that we don't get to explore enough. But there is a section in the documents area where there's detailed test reports and report cards that are needed to sometimes complete the applications. I know that sometimes there's like, oh, well, the school has that report card. All of these documents are available to you there. As long as the student has been enrolled in Desert Sands for the last year or so that they usually ask report cards from. If the student is coming to us this year, but they were at a different school, different district probably before that, then we may not have all of those digital records and we will have to refer to the CUME. And we can help you with that. But a lot of the times, feel confident that all of the stuff that you need to apply to some of the private schools is available to you through the parent portal. And then also just with wanting to meet those timelines, because we know it's important for you to have all the decision information. Sometimes these schools require recommendations from the school, whether it's from a teacher, whether it's from a counselor or administrator. So we just ask, give us enough time before those are due so that we can get those to you. Part of the nature of the job, unfortunately, is for as much as we spend time in the classroom doing lessons with the kids and we get to know them, sometimes we don't get to know some of the accomplishments that they do. And we like to sometimes sit down with the kids and do a little interview to make sure that we're filling up these recommendation letters that are to their benefit as complete and giving these schools as big of a report as possible. I won't know that your kid is a star water polo player, so we don't have a
team
pool.
or
We
whatever.
don't have
You
a
would
pool.
know that, right? Unless they
Yeah,
told us
so
that.
exactly. So there's some things that we won't get to know. So that's why we need a little bit of time just to make sure that we do a fair process to our kids and give them the best opportunity to join all the schools that they want to be in. So yeah, give us a little bit of time with that, and we will do our due diligence and we'll communicate with the schools. And yeah, this is just a sample schedule. For the high school, everyone will have essentially these classes, maybe in a different order. Everyone signs up for pre-AP English. There is no honors, no regular. This is regular. And everyone takes pre-AP English 1. And then there is math is maybe where there will be a variance depending on where the student is at. So most students will sign up for a Math 1 course. If the student is currently taking compacted math here and they are being successful with it, then they will get the recommendation to move on to Math 2 honors at the high school. If they are not being successful with it, the math teachers will have that conversation with the students and with the family and let you know we're not making the recommendation to Math 2 honors, and instead we want them to be successful rebuilding their skills in Math 1. So that's evidence-based. We can see that with the students' progress and success in the class or lack of, but we want the kids to be successful at high school. We don't want to overwhelm them. We want them to be successful. So the teachers will have that conversation. And then there's also that group of students that may be recommended for compacted math at the high school, which is an accelerated math course. They start out Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3 in 2 years. So they do 3 years of math in 2 years. They end up taking calculus by the time they're juniors. So
Yeah, there's just 3 years. Ours is like a year and a half. Right, or come back with 1, it's like a year and a half of math.
No, it's
They
the
do.
same
No.
thing.
The
So
same
we're
thing.
essentially taking compacted
Compacted
math
math, yeah.
here, 7th, 8th grade. It's the same exact thing in 9th and 10th grade. Those students are all gonna end up at the same place.
Yeah.
It's just how the
Different timelines.
students.
They do it
some
before and
students
then
weren't
can do
ready.
it after.
Right.
But those grades,
One perspective I often share with students, and it's kind of, you know, in the thought that as this comes up, we feel overwhelmed. I don't know if it's the history of education or just the way high school is designed. One way to look at it is, although there's a variance of maybe what level of class you might have, when you really think about it, the freshman schedule, there's not a lot of room for choice. Like they have to take all these things to stay on track for their diploma. So I often tell a student that seems a little bit worried, I'm like, you really, your freshman year, you don't really, there's not a lot of room for a bunch of elective and these things, right? It's kind of set, right? So that's one way to think about it, to sort of, you know, take a breath and go, each year is going to be a little bit graduating and how complex their schedule gets, but that first year is.
but it is something to think
Sad.
about because that is their GPA. My daughter had the same situation happen where she didn't do it here, but she was gonna do it in high school. And then we had that conversation. Do you are you gonna go into math? I mean, are you gonna do a math major? Is this what you wanna do? And she's like, no, I don't. I wanna do psych and anthropology and stuff like, then don't do it. Cause that's gonna be your grade. If you fall short on that, cause that was not her strength, that's your GPA. And that's going to, you know, affect you at college and you're admitted, you know, on where you go. And so she decided to take the regular math and get, you know, that grade. So there's, and everybody's different, because there could be a student that's, well, I want business. You know, I love math. I want to then go for it, you know?
If you want to counter, just on the other side, is if your child has that strength.
Yeah, that's what.
They do, some colleges do look at, our children taking challenging classes.
Mhm.
So there is a lot to balance in that, and if it is something that they're gonna struggle with, you have to put them in the place where they're gonna get the best grade. But if they can rise to that challenge, it's great to see them taking challenging classes.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention in that last slide, Mr. Walton, just the other requirements again of world language. Again, this is, we already talked about the placement test and all that stuff. So this is the only year where students really get 2 electives in their schedule. They don't have a history class yet, as gets added in world history their sophomore year. So this is an opportunity for them to start working on that goal, and that's why there's a big push collectively to get the students going. And then the last one is the PE. The PE class is a requirement for everyone to be signed up during their freshman year, unless there's one of those medical situations where it limits the student from participating in a PE course. And that's mainly because there's state testing that happens in physical fitness, just like it happens in 5th grade, in 7th grade, it happens in 9th grade as well. So a lot of students sometimes want to opt out of that freshman year. It's not really an option. The high school always tells us there's like 99.something%. It's almost all students are signed up.
Even if they're in a sport
Yeah, even if they're in the sport.
where it changes
Mhm.
later.
Yeah.
Here's a breakdown for high school diploma, right? So the requirement is 220 credits. You can see kind of at the bottom there, speaking above the screen. So all students will be, one thing the high school does, and we have the other slide for A through G, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's coming.
Is they focus on, they'll try to steer and focus on scheduling, so all students are eligible for college in the A through G requirements, which we're gonna talk about in a minute. So if that's the goal and outlook for that student, they'll automatically fall in line with making sure they meet all of these requirements for a high school diploma, right? But the high school diploma is 220 credits. And these are the required areas that those credits come from, right? So there's 30 credits from science, social science, 40 from English, which means 1 period every year of your high school career. For every semester, you're going to be in an English class, right? Because that's all 4 years of school. Mathematics 30, lab science 20 credits, fine arts or world language 10, physical education 20, and then an additional 70 from electives of the student's choice for various opportunities, right? So that's really, and then even when we presented this last month, student goes, oh, so those are optional. And it's like, no, they're not optional. You have to have those 70 credits, right? And I think if you're on track through all of these credits, it's about your 2nd to 3rd quarter of your senior year that you maybe hit the 220. Would that be accurate?
Right.
Am I in the right month or zone there? And so as they progress, once they meet those requirements, they're taking those electives that maybe they're pursuing to set themselves up for college or the area that they may want to study, right? So there's room for that. There are some students like in the CTE programs that we'll talk about in a little bit, where that time in their senior year works into a plus in with that CTE program, where you're maybe doing something at another site, or you're starting some sort of mild internship. So those are some opportunities as well. But these are the minimum requirements for that high school diploma.
And
200
if your
credits.
student is an EL student, they haven't passed the LPAC, that will be their elective until they pass that test. So it will continue on, you know, that's why we try our best here to get those students reclassified. So that when they go to the high school, they can have an elective, and they can do all those things that they want to do.
So here's the A through G for all UC and college admission requirements, right? So Palm Desert High School, specifically, I know steers encouraging and they're scheduling with the counselors to set students up for this, right? Doesn't mean that every student's going to go to college. And I use the philosophy that I learned in my educational journey and just professions in working. If you challenge yourself, like Principal Dolan was saying, and you accomplish something, or these, let's say you set yourself up for this, then the student gets to choose what they do next, right? The student that just is maybe doing the status quo and may meet the high school diploma requirements on the slide before, they're going to graduate high school, right? But their choices might be less or limited based on their competitiveness in the social market, right? In society. So I try to encourage students to think about, if you have the ability, right? Do that, challenge yourself and get that extra class or grade or certificate, right? So that you hold all the cards in your life plan of what you choose to do next. Because you can be AP all the way through and have straight A's and then decide you're doing something different, right? So you just get to make that choice. So there's a little bit of variation in these. So there's still 4 years of English, 2 years of social science, 3 years of math. There's lab science. I think there's an extra year of world language on this, right? And somebody can add in if I'm missing something. That college prep 1 year is an addition above and beyond the high school one. A bigger difference here is you do have to be wary of the student's GPA, right? So to be eligible for the UCs and the CSUs, the minimum GPA for university for UCs is 3.0 average in all of the A through G. And then the California State Universities, that GPA can be a 2.0, right? And so, and that's similar to athletics at a lot of schools, I think, is 2.0 to be eligible for athletics. Which is, a good, which means a large vast of the population of students could likely achieve that, right? And so that's why you'll see the counselors at most high schools, we know specifically for Palm Desert, will focus on this design to urge students to be eligible so that they get more choice, right? It makes them more competitive. Here's a breakdown of how the credits kind of play out. Like Ms. Vasquez was talking, it's 5 credits or no credits, right? So here you see kind of a report, a semester design. For the first semester of high school, you got English, math, foreign language, science. There's an elective showing there, but Ms. Poseidon articulated a student that is required by law to be an English learner still and hasn't reclassified out of that. That will be their elective at the high school, right? So they'll have that English learner class, PE. And so each semester is 5 credits. I go through the kind of the scenario with the students where we talk about GPA and the credits, right? I say, what's an A? If you had straight A's, right? What's an A and how many credits do you get for an A? And they say 4 or 5. And I go, yeah, 5. And then I go, how many credits do you get for a B? And they go 4. And I'm like, no, 5. So as long as you pass the class,
So passing is very important
right?
because
D, that's actually D and above, right? You'll get 5 credits. F's warrant 0 credits, right? So if you fail a class. So I sort of remind freshmen, like, you need to start with a kind of a purposeful focus on day 1. Because if you have difficulty in math and you're struggling the first semester and then the second semester and maybe you didn't post a D or higher and you failed, you're not on track for a high school diploma anymore. Actually, let me use English, right? Because there's 4 years of English every semester. So if you have 0 credits come semester 1 of English, your freshman year, you just got yourself off the track for your high school diploma, right? Because those 220 credits.
There is summer school and things like that, that you can recover those credits, but, you know, the goal is not to have to do that.
Right.
The goal is to stay the course and follow, you know, and pass all your classes.
So some of our 8th graders, because the grading is different here in middle school, and you still go from 7th grade to 8th grade if you had an F in something, right? In high school, it's taking away, you losing your opportunity to stay on track for your diploma really quick. So I try to remind students, like, make sure that you're engaging and turning in work and understanding what's going on and asking for help, right? Because you can go to the high schools and you might see a junior or senior student in a 9th grade freshman class for math or for English, because they got off track their freshman year and the counseling scheduling didn't take them off the other schedule. So when they got that free space at the end of their junior and senior year, now they're going back to repeat a freshman class so they can get the 5 credits and get their diploma, right? Rather than leave the school, right? But if they get too far behind, the counselor will have the conversation that says, this isn't working for you, we can't keep you here. You know, you have to go get credit recovery, what they call, somewhere else. And some of those students will do that and then come back and graduate with their class. But our goal is to instill a mindset that the students, you know, start paying, you know, at the day one with that. And I actually, I go over to the high school for California Cadet Corps every now and then. And I saw one of our students that was here last year after the bell released and was waiting out in the parking lot. I asked how things were going, and the student said, Mr. Walton, I didn't realize like how much homework they were going to give me. And the student's not having a real difficulty, but it's a faster pace, right? So your students need to be aware of that. I'm good.
Opportunities, okay, so the next parts are gonna be talking about all the different opportunities. So we were talking about CTE, that's in there, the technical, you know, pathways that we have at Desert Sands Unified. There's a lot, there's different schools that offer different things, right? And of course, college and trade schools and all those things. I think on one of our counseling days, we got to go, visit, I think it was Amistad. We got to, man, they had the coolest like shop, like where they fix cars and stuff. And they had like, it was really, really cool. And I've never seen, I was going, wow. And the kids that go there that really choose that career get to go in there, they get to fix cars, and they even give them a pathway to get jobs in different parts of California and things like that. So we thought, you know, there are really a lot of different things offered at Desert Sands. And so we're going to kind of go over some of the high schools and start with Palm Desert High.
I just want to like go back on that a little bit more. When we are in the classrooms and we do present to the students about, you know, their journey and getting into college, we also make it a point to say, you know, college may not be for everyone. Sometimes, you know, students don't want to actually go to maybe a UC or a Cal State. Sometimes they want to go learn a trade. Those are great programs. Sometimes they want to go into the military so that they can, you know, serve the country, but also have the opportunities maybe to get their education paid for later on. There are so many other pathways. So we really try to reiterate that and make the students feel that they have many opportunities. So the going to a UC or going to a Cal State isn't the only way that you're going to be successful. Success is defined in many different ways. And so we want the students to know that, you know, whatever their dream is, there are many opportunities to achieve those dreams. And so
It's
you know,
very
we talk
individualized,
about
right? If
that
you don't
a lot.
have the
Yeah.
funds to do that, if your parents don't, and your family doesn't have the funds to really, even with, you know, extra help with loans and things like that, a lot of students these days I see are starting to choose, you know, to go to a junior college, to go to COD, do those 2 years for free, and then move to that UC or state school, if that was their choice. But so there's really so many options, and every student's gonna be different. It's gonna be different for every student.
These are some of the CTE pathways that they offer at Palm Desert High School.
Yeah, so
So-
they have the Avid, which we have here. We do have an Avid class here, and we're Avid school-wide. So you probably heard that, like with the planners, all that stuff is in Avid strategies, and we use those strategies throughout like all the classes, but there is like a specific class that they can take as an elective.
And
Avid
what's AVID stand for again?
Achievement via
Achievement.
individual determination.
determination, yeah.
Okay.
I always forget the acronym, but.
It's designed as to instill an individual discipline, to be organized
Okay.
and planned and prepared and kind of the theory of setting up your future on your own, right? To instill that into those students.
A lot of the note taking that they learn is really so crucial. That's probably the biggest part, because everybody's getting the organization, the whole school's getting, that's for everybody. But that class specific, they really, they do like groups where they're talking about their studies, their classes, they're doing notes differently so that they really understand what they're doing. So when they get to the high school, they know how to take those notes and they know how to study for a test. Whereas like that's, a lot of times that's not taught, you know, to students when they go into a math class. They're not taught how to take the notes, you know, properly to pass the test and those kinds of things. So Health Careers Academy, that's at Palm Desert High. Film audio, we have that here. So that's a good pathway for us. 7th grade, we do have that health class in 7th grade that they really focus on, but the film and the broadcasting we have here, that's a pathway. Performing arts, we have drama here, that's a pathway. Military cadets, we have that, so that's a pathway. Engineering Academy, we do have our Mr. Munskard, who teaches our computer literacy. He does a little bit of that as well. But this is like the big picture of all the different schools. So for example, we have one that doesn't transfer over would be foods, for example. If, you know, a student took foods and they were like, but this is my career. I want to be a chef. A pathway would be La Quinta High. They have a whole culinary department, a huge culinary department that they focus on. So some of the schools really do have different things that are different than Palm Desert High, but Palm Desert High does offer these. I don't know if you can see all that.
And they're amazing programs.
Yeah, they're
I mean,
amazing
like-
programs.
Like Shadow Hills has their renewable
Yeah.
energy program.
Mhm.
I think they have an education program as well. There's one of the schools had like a flight program. I don't know if that.
I think that was Shadow.
That
but
was
I don't
Shadow,
know.
yeah. And then Indio High School's like their broadcasting program is like top of the line. It's what Desert Sands uses to create like a lot of their promotional videos and all that stuff. They go through Indio High School. They have the animal science program that is
Yep.
pretty much only available. It's the only school that's available. So there's a lot of really amazing things going on elsewhere. The cosmetology and barbering programs are available also like at Summit. That's something that is opening up to be available to all students regardless of the site that they're at. Same thing with the Amistad program.
That's the one that we saw. Yeah.
So that
Automotive.
one, they shared with us, there's an entry point that happens only during their junior year because there's a sequence of courses. And again, it's available to all students regardless if they're going to Palm Desert or they're going to Shadow. They can kind of work it out in the schedule if the student can meet that they can participate in these programs. So,
And the
Yeah.
ones that go to Amistad, it was really interesting. They provide transportation
Mhm.
from the school that they attend. So let's say they attend La Quinta High School and they want to do the automotive program and they get in, they would provide transportation over there from the site. So that was really cool too. And then the one that I really liked at Amistad was the engineering.
Engineering, yeah.
As far as they built like a tiny home, so a tiny home from, you know, ground up. That is really cool. So imagine, you know, these skills like your child knows how to build a home from the floor up. That's a pretty good skill, you know, so I definitely think there's a lot of opportunities. I was really impressed with what we saw at Amistad. It's really nice that we had the opportunity to go see it, and I was like, man, I want to go back to school and do some of these things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely exciting for the students. They just have to ask questions, talk to their counselors, and, you know, get information so that they can do some of these.
Yeah, my husband is at Indio High and he does engineering and physics. And they have 3, I think, sheds that they built. They have power tools in there. They have a welder. They have CNC machine. I mean, there's a lot of things for them to explore and learn and all schools have their niche, you know, of different things. So
And I
it's
just
really
want to
cool.
throw something else out there. The bell schedule that these other schools have in comparison to Palm Desert High School, again, not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Palm Desert is getting creative with different ways to plug in kids into more opportunities. But some of the other schools have 7 and 8 day periods, which means that they're able to plug into a lot more programs. So again, it's Desert Sands effort to kind of like promote all of the other things that are out there.
And longer times, like,
Yeah.
because if you're doing power tools, I mean, you don't have time to have 30 kids doing power tools and stuff in a matter of 50 minutes, right? So their periods are much longer. They're like an hour, I think 9, I don't know how many minutes, but a lot. So that it gives them time to, you know, really get into what they're doing.
So we always remind students and families to be plugged in with the high school website and any Google Classroom that they're able to join for their class, graduating year class. And it says take initiative, right? This goes back to what Ms. Vasquez articulated earlier in the conversation, which is all these opportunities of leadership, sports, cheerleading clubs, they're all on different timelines. So it's up to the student and the family to seek what those deadlines are, what requirements need to be turned in. You know, if we get that information, we'll publish it, but we don't see it all. So it's really about individual initiative. I want to be in dance or band or
Water polo.
Water
and things like-
polo.
A lot of those things are done in
and
the summer, too.
identifying when those medical requirements have to be turned in and signups and maybe there's summers something, right?
Mhm.
So just be aware of that and be on the lookout for those things that you might be interested in.
I always like the bottom where it says, check
Check
out the 2028 Google Classroom. So that to me always just is like, boom, like, oh my gosh, my child is gonna be 2028 graduating from high school. That's just like a big hit. It comes by really quickly.
Palm Desert High School, we talked about the 2.0 earlier, that's the minimum, and no Fs for athletics, that's their requirement. So, you can be an amazing student, have pretty good grades, but if you get F or 2, they might not let you play on the team, right?
And they
So-
do offer like this thing called office hours, where it's like, if they are not doing well, they might be asked to come, you know, during the office hours to go to that class to retake a test or, you know, so there's time in the day that they can retake and help themselves out as well, if they are struggling, you know, and the teachers are there to support them.
So then summer school, yes, so it's recommended at this point for our students, for different reasons. So the first, is gonna be our students who are getting any grade lower than a C currently in their math class in 8th grade. There's 2 options to do a 3-week course. So there's summer school at the high school is for 6 weeks total. So there's an option of doing the first session or the second session, a total of 3 weeks. Summer school is 4 days a week, about 6 hours a day. So there's still long weekends. And there's still, 4th of July, all that stuff is still kind of acknowledged and celebrated. But if you have an 8th grade student, talk to them, reflect on their grades right now. Will they be getting the recommendation by their math teacher at the end of the year to go in and take an additional math course in the summer? Our district has shared with us that ongoingly students who struggle during their 8th grade year in math and don't take summer prep course tend to fail the first semester, which we're talking about, again, kind of resetting all those plans for the high school experience. So we really want students to start, again, mentalizing that I need to pass my classes, otherwise I'm gonna struggle and I'm gonna have to modify my timeline and my plans. So that's one of the options. So if the student is currently getting lower than a C, we might have to kind of start considering math as an option during the summer. And then for those students that are taking one of these classes, ELD, AP Human Geography, AVID, or pre-AP Dance, which are sort of additional academic classes that sort of impact the schedule. The high school has allowed in the last 2-3 years, and I don't see that changing this year at all. We have those communications with them. Students can take PE during the summer to sort of not impact that schedule as much. Again, this is one of those things that we're talking about, the high school getting creative and trying to bring opportunities to the kids to get involved. So students can take PE during the summer. And I know the kids always say, but it's so hot in the summer. Yes, but then there's an opportunity to do like all of the outside stuff early in the morning. They have the gym, they have the pool, they have, again, just more opportunities to do indoor stuff. They have a weight training room. There's a lot more opportunities for the kids to be indoors during the summer and to plug into all of the facilities. So if the student is gonna take, again, ELD, AP Human Geography, AVID, or pre-AP Dance, then they're the only ones that are eligible for PE, not anyone else. There's no acceleration path to start taking math or a Spanish course or anything else.
And I
This
don't
is the
believe
only
they have
option.
a 0 period. A long time ago, I think they did offer something like a 0 period to do that same thing. We did too, for our ELD students, to offer them that chance to take a 0 period PE so you can get the elective here, right? But I think they did away with, I don't think they have. the
So
0
for
period.
summer school, again, usually the applications come in like April, early May. We will communicate with you if we get that recommendation from the math teacher. Hey, we'll bring in the student, we'll talk to them about it. For some of these other elective options, it's really more initiated by the family. Let us know, we'll send out communications, but make sure you complete those applications. It's usually the week right after our school year ends is when summer school starts. So if it's the 6-week program, or if it's a 3-week math option, think of that as you make your summer plans and whether that will impact the family or not. And we're gonna have to modify some things. Also, if there's a fall sport in the plans, again, sometimes that will impact those training schedules and those tryouts and all that stuff. That will mean being available for all of those camps and things like that.
Attendance is a requirement, meaning they're giving accelerated credits for that course so that student doesn't have to take PE, right? And so they have to be attending the whole 6 weeks. There's not a tolerance for late show ups and tardies. They just drop that student at the point that it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And you just don't get any of the credits. And then they change your schedule to go back to where the class you have to have.
If the student is absent for 10 hours, they get dropped.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I know
Because
this-
it's so accelerated, they're
Yeah.
receiving 10 credits
For a whole
in 6
year.
weeks for a student that takes a class for a whole year.
Right?
So
So
there's no.
the staff doesn't really, it's, what I've heard, it's binary, meaning you're after the 10 hours, you don't need to come back anymore.
Yeah.
Just make sure your student's aware of that.
Those are the counselors at the high school. Again, they go very similar to how we run our program. They go by last name Alpha. So we did share this with the students as well, so that they can sort of get a glimpse of who their counselor will be.
It's on the website.
It's also on the website again, so if they maybe want to reach out to them, they have a question, they can do so. Yeah, we really try to get the students excited. We do realize that it is a little scary, obviously, but they most of them are really excited about going to high school, so
Mhm.
it's going to be very
They're
fun
out.
and it goes by super quick.
Yeah, they're outgrowing us. so.
Yes,
Mhm.
they are.
They're ready, we get ready.
We'll be open for any questions. We're a couple minutes, we started a couple minutes after 8, we're a couple minutes beyond 9. Sorry for a couple minute delay on that. Next meeting is gonna be Wednesday, 7 February. And the floor is open for you if you have any questions about information passed today or anything else.
Any questions?
I have a question. Is the AP geography, it wasn't on that schedule that you showed the original.
So it's one of the elective options that
It's
the
an
kids will
elective.
have, yeah,
Okay.
and that's actually one of the course that. I mean, the student can choose to sign up, but usually we would want there to be a recommendation. So that meeting where the student meets with the counselor for those 3 to 5 minutes, they're gonna sort of check those where you recommended for it, and they're gonna have that conversation with the kid. Usually the recommendation comes from their performance in their humanities class, making sure that they're consistent and they're always, they have that good work ethic and they're following through and they have those writing skills that are gonna be needed for an AP course. But yeah, just having the initiative to be self-learners. If they struggle with that, they're gonna tell the student, you weren't recommended. If you still want to sign up for it, you can, but we wouldn't, based on your grades and things like that, it wouldn't be something that we'd be pushing it to do.
Yeah,
And
the capstone program requires, my daughter did it, 4 AP classes. So some of them want to get that AP class, that one out of the way, because they're gonna have to take 3 more and pass them there and do well to get the capstone and do the whole capstone, which is a 2-year. Another whole program inside of their school.
And AP, they're very rigorous classes, they're advanced placement classes, so they, it's pretty much designed like a college course, so it's lecture, test, lecture, test. That's pretty much how those courses go, and at the end of the year, they are required to take a state exam. And that is cumulative of all they learned within the year, and then they have to receive a 3
3 or higher.
or
3 or
higher on
higher.
that state exam in order to receive the college credits. So they could take the course all year, do, pretty well, but then if they don't pass the exam, they don't receive the college
You
credit.
can still get high school credit. They won't get college credit.
So for example, during COVID, when my daughter went, they all took stats, or some kids were taking calculus, right? But they were taking it all online. So they weren't getting the delivery of that class in its full, so they started allowing them to get out of the test. Because a lot of them said, I don't think I'm paying to take this test, but I'm not gonna pass it. There's just no way. And so a lot of the kids said, well, I'm just gonna pull out of that test, even though I paid, because you have to pay for those tests like in October. Or
The
a
AP
spring
test?
test. Yeah, once you pay for it, you have to, you paid for it, you have to take it. And so obviously these students didn't know about, COVID didn't, so in those situations, that's what happens. But if they do pass it, they can use that class to benefit them for the credits when they go to college. So that could save them, I don't know, like 5,000, 6,000, depends on how much that a course costs in college that they have to take, they could get it waived by passing them.
So
So it
there
could
is
save
save
them
them
money.
options, and you'll discuss these things with the high school counselor, not necessarily their freshman year, but when they go into their sophomore, junior, senior year. There are AP courses that are offered obviously at the high school, but they also have dual enrollment. And we don't really go too much into that because it starts to
Later
get
on.
very complicated. And these are really conversations that you would have with the high school counselor. I personally, and I know some of my colleagues, I favor dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is where they are taking a COD course at the same time that they are taking high school courses.
Get rid of that.
It's not as, and they get credit, and those are guaranteed college credits, whereas AP classes, they're not guaranteed that the UC that they are going to accept those credits. So all UCs are different. All UCs have actually a maximum amount of AP classes that they will take as well. So it gets a little bit more complicated in that way. If your child knows exactly what UC they want to go to and they get in, then they
Yeah,
can
some
gear it towards
transfer,
that,
some don't.
but not all transfer. Whereas if you go to COD and you do dual enrollment, they're gonna transfer.
It's an automatic.
When can you start the COD?
The dual enrollment usually is not until their
Junior?
sophomore, junior year.